Hello everyone. Today we have a really wonderful talk with Geoff Downes, and I'm going to let Dad introduce Geoff.
Yes. Well, I met Geoff a long time ago. My God, nearly, but not quite 40 years ago, when he joined Yes with Trevor Horn to create the drama album, which has one of my favorite Yes tracks on it, The Machine Messiah. I really love that. But Geoff and Trevor gave a new technological flavor to Yes, and it was very exciting. And I've enjoyed his company on and off ever since. He's a great guy. So here's Geoff. Now you've met him too, haven't you?
Yes, yeah, he's really lovely, really nice. And I thought this was a really great conversation as well. And actually what I thought was really good about this conversation is when we do the podcast or the live paintings, you get asked a lot about your interaction with the band when it comes to coming up with the artwork and the music and how that works together. And I thought this was a really nice talk for allowing people to see both sides of that conversation, how you guys work together and the music industry and what it was like and how things happened or didn't. And that was really interesting for me too, because both of you talked about things that I know about but haven't actually heard you talk about like that. And I think it filled in a lot of the blanks where, not that you answered with blanks, like when people ask you like what the interplay of art and music was, but I thought it was just really interesting hearing Geoff's side of that as well as a musician.
Yeah, it was interesting for me. I mean, I learned a lot. Anyway.
I will say, like, at the beginning, because what you've got is like two English men talking, there is a few minutes of, did you take the A27? No, I took the M25. Oh, it's a bit full when the weather's like, I don't know, road talk. That's like the English equivalent of what they do here, which is talking about food. It's just the segue in. It's the British man thing of getting a conversation going. You talk about which routes you took to what destinations, but push through, because then it's really good.
You're a horror.
It was really lovely to hear. It was like Christmas when the uncles have arrived. Oh, you took that road, did you? Oh yeah, no, we thought that would be a bit
All right.
But it was no, not dissing it. This was a fantastic conversation. That was brilliant. I just found that very nostalgic and comforting, particularly at the beginning.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Here's Geoff. Hey, here we go. We are recording. Hi, Geoff.
Hello, Roger.
We were just strange, isn't it? We were just talking about the other times we did it. One where Alan joined us in a live chat in front of an audience at Trading Boundaries.
That's right. That's what I did. I did a solo show at Trading Boundaries a few years ago now, and I think it was the day of Chris's memorial service, if I remember rightly, or the day after. And I had the show. It was either 1 or 2 days after Chris's memorial service, and that's why Alan was over in the UK, and so it was nice to chat and catch up on old times and stuff.
I think it was the day after the service.
I think you're right. I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember going to the service.
Yes, it was a good turnout. I thought the beautiful little church at the back of the Savoy.
Yeah, it was.
And
a surprise to discover that Chris had connections with it.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, Chris's connections. You could tell some of the influences in Chris's work as being a schoolboy, a chorister rather, a choir boy. I think he brought some of that too. Yes, actually, funny enough, I think that sort of or early sort of choral training was definitely part of Chris's mantle.
Yeah. I wasn't. I was laughing at the other thing we mentioned, which was the prog cruise.
Oh gosh, yeah, yeah.
Allegedly.
Well, no.
From Hull to Rotterdam in March, beginning of March. It was snowing. We came off the road. We had to take big detours. Getting to Hull was a nightmare. And why would you go to Hull in March? The prog cruise. And
I
I
know.
remember handing out pills to people because I had boxes of anti-seasickness pills.
It was pretty crazy. I mean, I'm amazed that everybody got on board, because I know that we came a day before, and I think that if we'd have waited any longer, we wouldn't have got out of Wales, because I think all the road network was completely gridlocked all the way right across England. So we made it, but. Fortunately, we made it over. I think we stayed in Leeds the night before, and it wasn't such a bad drive over to Hull the following day. But it was an interesting experience. I think we enjoyed it as much as I can remember about it. But
to my
it was
amazement,
pretty choppy.
it was more fun than it had any right to be, I think.
Yeah, I think so. But of course, you were set up. Eventually, you went into the theatre, didn't you, on the boat? Because
that's right, we did.
Originally you were sort of in the alleyway, in the gangway. That was pretty difficult stuff. But I thought it was as you said, it was quite a bit of fun.
Yeah, it was. And I enjoyed the chance to go to Amsterdam.
Yes, that was. In fact, I think we saw you there waiting for the bus back to the boat.
Yeah, that was a cold wait. I mean,
it was.
To give you an idea, there were people skating on the canals. It was real cold.
Oh yeah. Oh, it was very, very cold. I've still got a pair of gloves. In fact, here's one of them that I bought in Amsterdam, and they're still going strong.
Right. Yeah, well, you must have needed those.
Oh God, yeah. So yeah, it was nice actually. That was a nice little trip out actually, to go to Amsterdam, because of course it was Hull to Rotterdam, wasn't it? That was the
cruise.
The ferry.
That was the joyful bit.
I mean, it's odd when you think about it, because we've been on those luxurious cruises beforehand, and I mean, I think you've been on every one, haven't you?
I've been on every one, but I've been on a few others as well. I've been on the Moody Blues ones, on the Blue.
Oh, right, okay. On the Blue, yeah. It's the same boat, isn't it? It used to be the same boat.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it wasn't. So there was one occasion where we had to dash across Florida, because the boat docked in Tampa and the other boat sailed from Miami on the same day. Yep. So it was literally a race across Florida to get on the other boat.
Yeah, those were fun times. I mean, we had it cancelled earlier this year, obviously, because of the pandemic.
At the very last minute too.
Yeah. So I think we've done 6 so far. I'm pretty sure.
Something like that. Yeah. There was a missed year, wasn't there?
There was. I can't remember which one it was, but certainly it's it's quite a lot of fun. I mean, you enjoy it, don't you, Roger?
I do. Yeah. It was. Yeah. They were great fun. But do you think it'll happen again?
Well, it's put in for 2022, so we'll have to see. I guess see how the cruise industry recoils from. It's obviously been hit very hard with the pandemic. So yeah, we'll just have to see, I think, on that. But yeah, I kind of like them. I mean, from your standpoint, it must be great, because you know, you've got the Yes fans, and you know, that's really, you're hitting your demographic right on the nose, really. So it must be nice for you to meet all these fans, you know, who've admired your artwork over the years, and
It's lovely.
you know, really, and you know,
But
I'm sure that
that tour you've got just above your head in the picture, that was brilliant too, because I mean, I think of Arthur Brown as an old friend. He used to live in Lewis, and
right, okay,
you know, John Lodge's an old friend. It was,
yeah, and Carl, of course,
yes,
yeah. So
and you guys in
yeah,
Asia, and you guys in Yes. So
yeah,
that was a brilliant.
yeah,
It was fun.
yeah, because that
It's a
was
shame we lost the Europe end of that.
it was, wasn't it? Yeah, because you know, it would have been it would have been nice to have you know, taken that tour into Europe, and it was a great package, I thought, and
Yeah.
I think all the bands were very, very compatible. Obviously, being sort of rooted in British progressive rock, I think it was yeah, really, really nice tour.
I did enjoy it, and I find it strange too because you didn't actually necessarily see everybody. I remember setting off one time, almost exactly the same time as Billy. We set
Yeah,
off in a car. Billy set off in a car, and we never saw him again till we arrived. And then we arrived, and he arrived at the same time, but clearly a totally different route. And
yeah. Billy's, I think he relies a bit too much on the navigation system rather than having a look on the map and seeing where something is roughly relative to where you are to where you're going. Uh, but he probably went around a few fields, and you know,
well, we
God knows
must have as well because we weren't quicker. It was almost exactly the same length journey, but
right.
a different one.
Yeah, there were some fun trips on that. Certainly, you know, we did quite a lot by road, I think, didn't we? It was
Yeah,
quite, you know, the tour was actually very well routed. And,
I like the road part personally.
me too. I think that obviously, if it's a really long hop, you know, you can, you know, flight is really the only sensible option rather
Yeah,
than driving, you know, 700-800 miles. But you know, the average 200-300 miles is fine. You know, you even on a gig day, you know, you're there, you know, 3 or 4 hours. You know, so it's okay. You know, you don't have to get up too early. That's the benefit of it all.
I
But
I, I
that
remember
was great
traveling.
having you. Yeah,
Sorry.
that was great having you on board on that tour. It was,
Oh, well, thank you.
you know,
It was great fun. It was great fun. I remember driving across the Midwest, and there was nothing, virtually no change in scenery. And
yeah,
we weren't on a major road. It was single lane each way, and it was dead straight. There was never a flicker on the sat nav. And I was thinking as we were driving, there was an incredible change in the acoustics. You know, it go from a roar to a mumble to a splutter, and it was
yeah,
the road surface. And
yeah,
I thought you could almost do a map based on the sounds of the road. It was that different
well,
each time. But
yeah.
visually, it was well, it was dramatic in its sameness.
Yeah, well, you know, I think that you know, that's one of the great things about touring America is that you do see so many different landscapes, so many different. You know, the people are so different in parts of you know, all parts of America. So
Yeah,
it's not just one great big sort of blanket country that you know. It's so interesting to go into. I mean, I like going into places like in the Midwest because you know it's completely alien to the you know the coastal areas or the highly populated areas like the New York, the North Seaboard or northeast seaboard or even the west coast.
yeah,
So you know that area in the middle is really it's really a sort of very solid, interesting part of America, I think. As much as I love the coastal areas as well, New York and LA, but yeah, I mean it's really is an education. I think I've actually been to every single state at some point in America, which is quite an achievement, I think.
There can't be many years when you haven't toured, can there?
Well, certainly since I rejoined Yes in 2011, we've toured consistently every year, particularly in the States. Sometimes we've just gone out in our own right as Yes. Other times, we've gone on a bill or a package. We had the Estival thing a few years ago, and we've been out with Styx and Journey, and well, not Journey, but certainly
Rush.
Styx. We went out with one time. Procol Harum was another one we went out with. So it's kind of quite interesting to have, to be playing on a bill. I think it's a bit less pressure in a way, because I think when you are the focal point, when we were doing the three album series,
Yes.
that was a lot of. We'd be playing for maybe 3.5 hours a night, that's a lot of work. It's a lot to get through. So as I say, it's a bit less pressure when you get into the the bill with another band or another couple of bands.
What you play is interesting to me as an outsider, because I couldn't believe that you did 18 years with not playing Relaya. That seemed extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that was one of the high spots, I think, of our set on the the Royal Affair tour last year was starting to dig into Relay as an album. I think Gates of Delirium is. I think the whole album's pretty astonishing, really, because it's a Yes in a totally different light. I think it's the one album that sticks out as being Yes doing something really quite radically different, which was more of the it's a lot of jazz influence. It's a lot of very, very high, intricate musical pieces, and I think Patrick Moraz was a very very influential on that album, because I think his keyboard playing brought Yes into another dimension. And I think when you talk to your Yes fans, and they they pick out an album that they really think is special, or certainly interesting. Some would say Tales from Topographic Oceans was sort of almost like the holy grail for some Yes fans. But I think Relayer is a worthy album to look at, and we're hopefully we'll be out there next year doing it.
Good. I mean, I would say arguably my favorite Yes track is Gates of Delirium.
Yeah.
And I've said it to Steve many times.
Wow.
He's probably bored me hearing it, but I couldn't understand why you never called why they never called the album The Gates of Delirium, because I liked it so much better than Relay. It was that much more evocative.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's a very evocative title. I think you're right there. I mean, I don't know why they called it Relay. Do you know why they called it Relay?
Steve told me that the word Relay occurs in Tales, and John wanted to use that as a title.
Right. Okay.
Almost a reason for not using it, I would have thought.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they had their ways of working, I suppose. Yes. Certainly, when I joined them in 1980, I was very very interested in Yes from an early period. From the Tony Kaye period, from the second album, Time and Word, and it was, to me, joining that band at that stage was I wasn't not want to say a dream come true, but it was from the inside looking out, it was just very, very strange that I found myself in that situation. You know,
Right.
playing with these guys who I'd admired and looked on and really got into their music, and they were amazingly. You know, Chris, Steve, and Alan were very very complimentary and very supportive when I joined. I think that and with Trevor, of course. So it was very much a case of well, you're in the band now, so let's just do it. And it was a great moment for me. Certainly, going out and playing live to all those people was something I'd never done before. It was a bit of a baptism of fire, but we got through it.
Well, I was going to say that's another album which has a track I really loved that was never played, and that was Machine Messiah. I thought that was brilliant. And when you started playing that again, I thought, yes. Yes.
I think that is probably the key track on that album. I think that really, I suppose it epitomizes the joining of Trevor and myself, coming from a more sort of technological oriented pop, as opposed to some degree, joining forces with these three, pedigree musicians who've been around since the late 60s, was really, I think that piece really captures that marriage of two styles, if you like. And I think that if we look at Yes, how they developed beyond that, I think you're looking at the technological side really came. Obviously Trevor did the next album, but the technological side, I think Yes really embraced. And I think that that drama album helped push Yes into a whole new chapter, which is, they'd done the 70s. They were this great stadium band that had been out there and done all of that. And for a lot of bands that from that period, there wasn't really much anywhere to go. You look at bands like there've been resurgences, obviously, but you look at bands like King Crimson and ELP, they kind of stopped operating at the end of the 70s because there wasn't that, certainly in terms of the progressive music that was there. I think we kind of helped Yes move into another generation, and the drama album, which is a very great cover, by the way, I must say, Roger. And that was our first connection when the two of us crossed paths.
Yeah,
and there's an interesting thing that a lot of the Yes fans talk about that album sleeve, which is the Panthers. There's two Panthers that they reckon were symbols of Trevor and myself coming into the Yes fold. Now, I don't know if there's any truth in that. Is there, Roger?
I tell you what, I would have had to have had a brain 10 times the size of my own to come up with all the stories I hear about these. I had somebody write to me a very interesting letter about how they'd found the face of every member of Yes in the rocks and tails, but they didn't know for sure which was John. Could I give them a clue? And
Great.
It's kind of wonderful, really, that goes on. But I do remember somebody said to me at a signing, actually, in San Francisco, and they asked me about some symbolism. I said, oh, no, there's none of that in there. And he looked at me and he said, how would you know? You're just the artist. Well, there's truth in that, because you do things you don't really notice yourself doing. And there might have been a reason behind it. But it was intriguing that he said that.
That's brilliant. I mean, I find that, there's a lot of the fans out there. I mean, they know more about you than you do about yourself, almost. And it's
definitely true.
And every minor detail. They'll there'll probably be some, from our conversation today, there'll probably be some hidden messages somewhere that we're throwing out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's that was great. I was very happy with that that whole collaboration, and I think that it was nice that you were continuing the whole Yes thing, and of course 2 years later it all came about again with Asia, and
Which again, but was kind of accidental, wasn't it? Because there was a proposal that I don't know if it came from John and Carl, but that if I did the cover, it would look too much like a Yes cover, and it wasn't.
that was the conversation. I do remember it, and I think both Steve and myself held out because obviously we were, we felt strongly because we'd both come off that drama album at that point, and we just thought it was a most logical way to go. And I think when you came up with the initial ideas for it, that impactive logo, the Asia triangular logo, which is absolutely probably almost as defining as the Yes logo, the bubble logo, gave us that sort of, I don't know, it was a grandeur that we were trying to achieve in the music, and I think that it really kind of helped us. It helped the whole thing. And of course, when John incorporated, when you came up with the serpent and we call it the dragon, but actually, I don't think it should be called a sea dragon because I think it's actually a serpent on the Asia album sleeve. So, when you came up with that image and John incorporated it in Lines of Heat at the Moment, you catch the pearl and ride the dragon's wings.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
That is right.
I knew there's a connection, but I didn't know it came after he saw it.
Yeah. So I think that was part of because funny enough, Heat of the Moment was the last song we did for the Asia album.
Ah.
We were originally had enough material up till I think Only Time Will Tell, which was going to be the first single, and I think that Geffen or John Kolodner, as it was at the time, came over and said, "Oh, you guys, you've got to have we need another single. We need a lead off track," and that's when John and I said, "Well, what have you got?" And he said, "Well, I had this old country tune that was in 3/4, and it was Heat at the Moment. It was a kind of weird timing." And I said, "Well, I've got this other idea that goes, the verse part." And so we literally, I think in an afternoon, we just combined all the ideas and we had the song written. So it was the last one that was actually recorded for the album, and may well have been, that lyric might have been influenced by your artwork. So I'm not giving you any publishing on it though, Roger.
I had to say that when I took in that logo to see you guys in the studio when I'd done it, John Kolodner really didn't like it. He said, "Can't read it."
That's right, he did.
And John told me later that when he was in Geffen's offices, they walked him down the length of the office and said, "John, you've got a logo no one can read. The cover is too dark, and we can't bear a hit."
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's like the producers, isn't it? Get everything wrong, and you end up, with the biggest success. Yeah, I know there was a certain thing with Kolodner, a certain resistance to the album, to the artwork. In fact, actually, funny enough, it was quite a lot of resistance to some of Steve's guitar parts on the album from Kolodner, and so I think it was their baby, and I think when the album was finished, and it was all presented. I think they started to see it at that point, but I think you're right. Up until the actual, before that was at that point, I think they were all a bit nervous about it, that they didn't think it was gonna fly. And then of course, they put it out to the radio stations, and it just went like that. Every single rock station, even the what they were called then were the AM stations, which were the pop stations. They were picking up on it as well. So we literally, in the space of about 2 weeks, we went from having an album that was, had a dark cover, couldn't read the logo, didn't hear any hits, to it just went through the ceiling, and of course, ended up selling millions of copies, which is nothing that we could have predicted, I don't think.
It's a similar story to when Elvis signed to RCA, and the first thing he recorded was Heartbreak Hotel.
Yeah.
And they couldn't believe it would sell.
They didn't get it.
No.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story about A&R man, because they're a certain breed, aren't they? I don't know what it's like now in the music, but it's not so much artist driven in terms of, finding a young band and nurturing them and building them up. A lot of the acts either win the talent shows, or they're picked from reality TV shows or the Mercury Prize winners. A lot of the artists today come through that route, whereas I think the old days where you would take your tape back in the day, you take your tape and you play it to the A&R guy, and he'd say, "Yeah, I don't really see that," or he'd say, "Yeah, okay, send me some more. I'll have a listen to this stuff." So there's this big thing about the A&R guy was the guru, in the record label, and if you got lucky to see him, you probably get a rejection anyway. And I know that some of the they'd have hundreds of tapes sent in on a weekly basis, and then some of them they just put in the bin. I don't think they even bother listening to half of them. So we were very lucky with Video Killed a Radio Star, because we took it round every record label in London and some in America, and we got rejected by all the labels. We had Video Killed a Radio Star almost sounding as, the demo was pretty close to the original in the end, but they said, "No, we don't see that. We can't really get our heads around this one." And we had to see some people in New York as well. Trevor and I went to New York, saw a couple of labels there. The guy said, "Yeah," he said, "we just signed a band called the Corgis, a duo from England or wherever. We don't really need to sign another band like that." So that was fortuitous that Island Records, who turned us down several times before, my girlfriend at the time was working at Island Music, and she took a tape and played it to someone in the office. And they said, "Oh, that's pretty good, that. We kind of like that." They sent it over to New York and to LA, and the publisher there said, "This is really good." A guy called Lionel Conway, who was head of Island Music in America. And it just so happened that Chris Blackwell, the head of Island, was in his office at the time. And he said, "Oh, what's that you've got playing there?" He said, "Oh, this is a couple of guys from England." He said, "Sign them up now." He said, "Sign them as writers." He said, "Sign them as artists. Sign them as producers." And by the next day, we got a call from Island Records in London. And the guy said, "Yeah, we would like to come into the office." And they're all sat there. The head of the publishing, the head of the record label, the head of the studio complexes. I said, "Right, what do you want? How much do you want? We'll offer you this, that, and the other." So we went for a couple of backroom boys to being, sort of flavor of the year, as it were, with Island Records, which is unbelievable.
Martin, when he sent you the email, he said I was going to talk to you about your career. But actually what I wanted to talk to you about was, that I'm talking to everyone about really, is the creative process and how that works with you. And, you know,
Well,
everyone's asked the same question: where do you get your ideas? So it's about, where do your ideas come from and how do you get them out into the world?
it's very, very difficult to explain where the ideas come from, because, you know, I think that it depends. But a lot of the time, it depends who you're working with and what you're writing for. You know, because I think that you have to kind of channel. I suppose that in the same with you, in a way, you have to kind of channel your ideas to fit with the music, or the style of whatever whatever you're preparing. And so I've been lucky that I've worked with a lot of different creative people. For instance, you know, Trevor and Chris and John Wetton, you know, people that you know I really respected as well. And I think that when you work with people like that and we're bouncing ideas around, it's a very personal thing. It's almost like a relationship, you know, with like a marriage almost. You know, you're working with that person to make something, to create something. And so I've been very lucky that I've actually worked with these kind of creative people who have managed to pull out my own creativity. And I think what I always try to aim to do is I try to go for something that is different sounding. You know, it's a different. If I get an idea about a chord sequence or a melody in my head about something, it's you try and capture that. You know, I mean, in the old days we used to do it on an old cassette machine. You know, you'd have a cassette machine and press play, and then you'd sort of hum your tune into it. Those kind of things. But now it's a lot of it is obviously people messing around on the computer and they come up with ideas that way. So the creative process has actually changed, I think, quite a lot over the years. But I mean, from my own standpoint, I think if you like it, and I think that that was always the yardstick that we stuck by, is, you know, if we like it, then, you know, hopefully someone else is going to like it.
It's the only safeguard, isn't it? You can't work for somebody else's approval.
No, exactly, because I think that if you did that, you'd end up so confused by everything, because, you know, you've got to follow your own instincts. I think that's the thing, is that if you start listening to other people, and like we were saying, you know, people, you know, rejected music that you'd made or whatever, you know, people, you know, I'm sure there's people who said to you, I don't like that picture, you know. So you've got to be fairly objective about it, but at the same time, I think that the hard part is just really trying to focus on something that's unique. And I think once you get there, you know whether it's an idea that's going to have legs or not. And you know, I always remember when I used to write with John Wetton, because I think John was probably the closest ever writing partnership that I had, you know, in my lifetime. And we had this almost inherent understanding about what we liked and what we didn't like. I mean, we had similar backgrounds, so that helped in some ways, but you know, we were both brought up on English church music, so we had that common ground. I think the same, you know, I mentioned earlier about Chris Squire, he had that background as well. So it was very much, we almost had a sixth sense about what was going to be good and what was not going to be good. And that really followed through everything we wrote together. And we always had this thing where if we thought there was a really good idea that we'd put together creatively, then we'd look at each other, and then he'd put his hand out and shake my hand. Like we've done something. We've got something going here. So it was a very kind of brotherly thing that we had going, and obviously, it's very, very, very sad when John died, 4 years ago. It was
Yes.
not just because he was such a great bloke and very such a creative person. I think it was the loss of something that we had, our writing partnership and everything like that, which was something that we never get back.
That was a sad time. I had a friend a long time ago who was called Ramesses, and the backing group he had became 10cc.
Right. Okay. Well,
when I first met him, he asked if a journalist from NME could join us, because we'd been talking about the cover for his first album. And
right.
the journalist sat down and he looked at Ramesses, and the first question he asked is, Ramesses, where do you get your ideas from? Now, I'd been asked that question 100 times and had no clue other than to dismiss it as unanswerable. But Ramesses said, well, when I'm sitting and I'm still, I have to be still. But when I'm still, the ideas come from over here. And we all laughed, and I laughed, and I thought, but that is how it is.
Yeah.
That is exactly how it is. You cannot do anything but wait quietly and they come.
Yeah.
And the trick is then to capture them and to bring them into the world.
That's it. But I think that if it's a really strong idea in your own mind, I don't think you lose it. Yeah. I think you think, no, that one's going to get stored in the memory banks. That's going to be called out later. And I think that that was how John and I worked. Is that we stored up all these ideas, not sometimes recorded, but other times just up here, or notes or lyrical notes.
You write music?
Yes, I do. Yeah. But I work with a lot of people that are self-taught. Don't write stuff down. But I went to music college, so I kind of had a bit of a leg up in that area. But no, I think that it's something that, like you say, like Ramesses said, it just comes at you. You sit still and you wait for it to happen. There's no formula. And people, I think when we did our second Asia album and Kolodna came along and said, we want another Heat of the Moment, but you can't just pull these things out of thin air. They come at you. Funny enough, 10cc were one of my favourite bands, actually. The same part of the world that I'm from.
Right. Is that right?
Yeah, Stockport. Yeah, Manchester. Yeah.
Godley and Cream.
Yeah. And of course, Lol Cream is a very good friend of Trevor's now. He does quite a bit of work with Trevor. So I saw all these things go full circle. They did two videos for Asia as well, Godley and Cream, when they were doing their video stuff.
Yeah.
It's amazing. What amazes me, Roger, is how small the music business is. There's so many connections between all the elements. That certainly the people that we've worked with, and it was like on the Royal Affair tour. There were so many sort of cross-pollinations of people that have worked with sound that it's quite fascinating, really. It's a small world in many ways.
Yeah, it was. It was great. I mean, breakfast time was often very interesting.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, there'll be all sorts of conversations going on.
That's right. Yeah. Going back to that, they don't go away part of what you just said. People have asked me many times, do I have a notebook beside me in bed? And I say no, because if I do have a good idea, it doesn't go.
Exactly, exactly. My point, Roger. Yeah, and that's very true, because I think you kind of protect it. You know, you ring fence that idea and park it somewhere, because it's you don't know. John always used to say about, you know, I don't know when the writing muse is going to hit me, but you know, when it does, I want to capture it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, it's again, I don't know if that's the way everybody works. I know some people do it like a sort of a job, you know, discipline. Right, I'm sitting down and writing a couple of songs today. Certain things work for some people and not for others, you know.
For me, if I'm totally distract myself, you know, and I listen to stories, obviously you can't do that if you're writing, but if you're painting, you can. And
Yeah,
that very quickly gets me out of that phrase of my thinking where I'm actually being too self-aware. It just takes me
yeah,
away. And then I can do it. And, you know, it starts to flow. The bit
right.
that I have to avoid is the tendency to worry or overthink. And I always used to think John Kalodner was the antithesis of creativity or a musical muse, because the pressure and angst he created is the enemy of creativity.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, but you know, I don't think he was the only A&R guy. Like, you know, that, you know, a lot of those guys had huge egos. You know, and they felt that they were controlling the artist, and I suppose they were, in their own ways, they felt they were giving solid guidance. But there's no way that an A&R guy could enter the creative process, because, you know, they were on the other side of the fence as far as I was concerned. And
Yeah, but you guys are all exceedingly competent and experienced musicians. Somebody coming into the business cold,
yeah,
15, 16, 17, might
I,
be
I I
skeptical.
agree. I agree. But the thing was that they were the guys who were, you know, they had the purse strings on the whole project.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, the reality of it is that, you know, he who pays the piper calls the tune. You know, and I think that to some degree that was the case with a lot of bands, is that they just didn't have, you just haven't got total free reign, because you've got to meet the the sort of the money guys as well, because they're the ones that are funding the whole thing. And uh, but you know, that doesn't mean you've got to listen to them, you know, because I think if we'd listened to Kolodner and we'd said, all right, we'll scrap that logo, we'll scrap the sleeve because it's too dark, and we'll scrap the music because we don't hear any hits, then, you know, where do you go? You know, what direction do you take? Because you've obviously you've made those decisions yourselves. And I mean, I remember going back to Video Killed the Radio Star, exactly the same thing happened. One of the guys at the record label said, um, I don't get this song because it stops twice. You know, there's two breakdowns in the song. He said you can't have two breakdowns in a pop record. And we said, well, you know, that's the way it is, you know. And then Chris Blackwell said, you can't really call yourselves the Buggles, can you? He said, that's the joke name, isn't it? And I said, well, no, it's actually, it's a play on the Beatles, you know, but we were just a sort of studio version of the Beatles. These two little creatures messing around with knobs, you know. And no, he said, we want to call ourselves the Buggles. Anyway, when he went to #1 in the UK, he sent, as you did in those days, he sent the telegram through and said, I always knew the Buggles was a great name. So a lot of people get wise after the event, don't they? You know.
Well, yeah, I guess as long as they get wise at some point.
Yes, exactly.
Well, how we are probably at the point of where it'd be a good time to take a break. So, Geoff,
Yes, Roger.
Thank you very much for joining me.
It's been a pleasure, and it's been we've gone off topic on a couple of things, but I think generally speaking,
as we were talking, I had a whole bunch of things. I thought I need to ask him about this. I need to ask him about that. So if you don't mind, we can maybe do this again.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll catch up and cover. Well, there's a whole area in between that we've really not talked about. So let's get on with it.
Anyway, brilliant talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Yeah, great to see you, man. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Oh, I'm going to send you a copy.
Oh, lovely. Okay, thanks, Roger.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to leave the meeting.
That's right.
Okay. Cheers, Roger. Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye.